All right, look at this. This is going to be your real bubble trouble, I think, okay? What does that represent there, that pile of money? Well, check out this. We look at this chart here and we see this chart almost looks like last week's chart, right? Where I showed the sales prices of houses, have they gone up? But that isn't anything to do with housing. Nope, this chart is the devil. That's right. This is a big problem when you look at it as a chart. You hear people talk about it all the time, and if anything's going to burst, this is something I really think is going to burst. Look at this here. We're looking at the second quarter 2024. Okay, that number there, 34, that stands for trillions, okay? Trillions of dollars. Now look back in the second quarter of 2008. We were at like 9.5 trillion, okay? Under 10 trillion. In this amount of time since the 2008 crash, we've now gone up to over 34 trillion, almost 35 trillion right there. It's unbelievable. And then let's take a look back in 1982. Look how everything was like a kind of a flat line up until about 82. We started going up. And I remember when we hit that 1 trillion, and everyone said that's going to be the end. They said in 10 years the country was going to collapse. Well, here we are in 2024 and we haven't collapsed yet. Hey, this show here is about the Jacksonville area, the metro area housing market. I do this report every week. It's not about the death or anything like that, but that can lead to a lot of problems that could cause the housing market to fall down, okay? So it's something that I wanted to mention. Hey, in this show here, what I do every week, I look at the active listings, I look at how many are actively under contract, I look how many went pending, I look how many sold in the last 7 days. That's what we're going to cover tonight in new homes and in everything. Also take a look and see how many are in foreclosure status out of those active listings. Look at the rates and a whole lot more. Hey, I do this every week on location. That's why you're going to hear some noise in the background. Usually I'm in a new construction site or a home, and there's no difference. This I happen to be in front of a model home here today, and I've got some traffic behind me. Hey, my name is Tom Kerr. I'm just a regular guy who happens to be a real estate agent up here in Northeast Florida, and every week I bring you this show, Bubble Watch, and this is week 21 of my season 3 doing the show, and we're going to go into the back end of my MLS account where I show you these real numbers as in the real estate up here in this Jacksonville metro area. So right now, let's get to it and look at those, start off with those active listings in the back end of my MLS account. All right, here we are in the back end of my Northeast Florida MLS account, and what I'm going to do is look at these different statuses and see what the numbers are. So I want you to focus on this area right here where it says view results, because as I click on these different statuses, it'll show those results for you, okay? And then we will download all this to an Excel spreadsheet, and I'll pull out even more information than what we're looking at here. All right, so let's start off with those active listings. Okay, that number is 9,628. And that is our inventory here for the Northeast Florida MLS. All right, next thing we're going to look at, how many sold in the last 7 days. That number is 622. Next, we're going to look at how many are active under contract. Okay, that number is 1,177. Now, those are people that went under contract with contingencies, and those contingencies could be appraisals, they could be mortgage, loan approval, and they could be inspections, or house, having to sell. Next, we're going to take a look and see how many of those that were active under contract went pending in the last 7 days. That number is 336. And these are people who the contingencies passed, and so now they're on pending, and the next step would be closing. Now, when you add the pending and the active under contract, you get a total under contract. All right, next we're going to look at how many people withdrew their listings in the last 7 days. That number is 86, and these are people whose homes they are still actively active listings, they just can't be shown, and people do this for various reasons, to make repairs, someone's sick, somebody's working at home, they can't have people showing the house, whatever it is, it's still an active listing, just can't be shown. That's when it goes in withdrawal status. Next we look at expired. 271. Now this is different than then that withdrawal in that expired means they did not sell, they didn't get an offer, and the contract expired, so they are off the market. Next, we're going to take a look and see how many new homes sold in the last 7 days. That number is 253. And next, we're going to look and see how many new homes are active listings. That is 2,273. And that is the inventory of the new homes. Okay, next we take a look and see how many of these homes that are in active listings are in foreclosure status, and that number is 148. Then we're going to take a look and see how many are in pre-foreclosure status. These are of active listings. That number is 17. And then how many are in short sale status. That number is 40. Okay, now I export all that data into an Excel spreadsheet, which looks a lot like this. And that, you can see that that's just hard to read, a bunch of jumbled numbers. So what I do is I clean it up and put it into a spreadsheet of my own that looks more like this. Now this here is a little bit easier to read, and we can follow it week by week, and actually all the way back from the last couple of years, I'll show you in my Excel spreadsheets. So I'm going to get a lot more information than what I just showed you, so stick around. We're going to dissect all that from what I just showed you in the back end of the MLS, those charts there that I just did the printout of. Now, what we're going to do first, while all those numbers are crunching, we're going to take a look and see what did those rates do this last week. All right, here we're going to look at first the 30-year fixed rates, and we start off at the bottom here on all these charts, and this is where we left off last week. And in this particular chart, we left off at 6.21%. Over here on the right, you see the arrows. Those are the fluctuations during the week. So we see a bunch of red arrows and a couple green arrows. And over here on the far right here is what it was last year at this time. So we see we were at 6.21 and we ended up at 6.26. So we did have an increase, slight increase, okay? But when you look at last year's, I understand no one wants to see these increases, but we're still far below what last year was. All right, let's take a look now at the FHA. Okay, FHA last week we were at 5.8 and we ended up at 5.78. So actually FHA went down, okay? And then again, look at those rates over on the side and you see at this time last year, it was over 7% for the FHA, and when I were at 5.78. All right, let's see what VA rates did. Okay, the VA rates 5.82, and we had more drops than ups there as far as the amount, so we ended up at 5.79, and again, a lot better off than last year when we were in the 7s. All right, still, when we compare and look at those rates from a year ago, I know a lot of you, feel right now that they're still high, and they are compared to what we were used to, but historically, this is about where they normally would be, but it's a lot better than it was last year. All right, now let's go ahead and look at those Excel spreadsheets. All right, here we are into my Excel spreadsheets where we spread things out over the multiple weeks. Now, for those of you new to the show, because I get a lot of new people every week, okay, right here, this column here, season 3, week 21, that is the current week for the tonight's show, okay? I got all the data there. Over here on the far right is what those numbers represent, okay? Things that I was talking about in the, when I was showing the back end of my MLS. Now, these previous yellows are the previous weeks, okay? So you see last week and the week before. And then the white that's next to the yellow here is last year. So I've been doing this now. I'm in my 3rd season, so all these numbers I've been tracking just like I do on tonight's show, and I'm bringing it up. So we've got the real numbers of what it was a year ago. YOY is the year-over-year percentage of difference, and SFH is single-family homes, where I started pulling out just the single-family homes data out of the total to show you that. And then later we'll do the condominiums, with the charts similar to this. So let's start off first. We need to go further up. Wait a minute. There we go. Now we start off with the active listings, 9,628. As we can see there, that is actually a little bit of a drop from last week's and almost the same as the week before. Sold, 622. Okay, we're seeing an increase. Now this kind of surprised me because of the time of year. people are going back to school. They're getting involved with, you know, sports activities and things like that. I didn't think really looking at buying the houses. I guess maybe the interest rates had some effect on that. I have been in some multiple offer situations lately, so there is some activity picking up, but I was surprised to see this much. All right, active under contract, 1,177, so that is actually down from last week's. Pending, 336, it was down. Total under contract, 1,513, so that is a drop. Okay, we'll see how that affects sales as we go through. Withdrawals, 86. Expired, 271, that's high. I was surprised to see that. New home sales jumped, 253. So this is probably where our jump came from. And new homes active, that's their inventory, 2,273. Down here in the orange is the percentage of homes sold that are new. So we saw a big jump there. 40% of all the homes sold were new construction homes, okay? Now, something else I want to show you. This chart's, I go all the way back. See? All the way back there to when I first started this in May of 2022. That's when everyone told me that, you know, Humpty Dumpty was falling off the wall, and so I started this show. Now, this Excel spreadsheet, I've got a lot more here to cover, is available for download off of my weekly newsletter. If you're a subscriber, then you're already getting this. If not, all you got to do is just send me an email saying you want to be put on the newsletter, and then you'll get a link to downloading this same Excel spreadsheet I use on the show. Also, you'll get the MLS sheets for the houses of the week. All right, let's see how people paid for these homes. All right, here we go. Cash, over 1/4 paid cash. Conventional, 36%, so it dropped a little bit. FHA, about the same, almost 21%, VA almost the same. Now what went up is other, okay, so that I was surprised to see there. Okay, we you know, jumped quite a bit there for the other, because usually it's like around 1%, and now we went over 2%. All right, when we look at the foreclosures, now these are ones that are active listings for sale for foreclosures, okay? They're not the total foreclosures in this Jacksonville metro, okay? These are the ones that have been put on the market to sell, but they're in foreclosure status, 148. Okay, pre-foreclosure 17, short sales 40, so we had an increase of 1. All right, next we look at homes that sold under list, at list, and above list, the percentage of homes, okay? Still up there high, over 78% sold under list price, 12% sold at their list price, and 9% sold above list price. So that above list price did drop a little bit from the last couple weeks. All right, here I look at the categories, okay? Homes that sold in the 500 range, 400, 300, 200, and below. So out of that, we look at, you know, over 27% sold 500,000 and above, okay? Now, don't lose sight, 500 is $500,000, all right? So that's still a lot. But over 1/4 of the homes sold for that, okay? Homes that sold in the 400 range, okay, over 14.5%. Homes that sold in the 300 range, okay, 27.33, almost matches the 500, and that seems to be the case usually week after week. Homes that sold in the 200 range, almost 22. And homes that sold below 200 at 9%. Now over here on the right is the new homes, the amount of units that sold, not percentage, but the amount of units. So 50 out of the 253 homes, 54 of them were above 500, 45 in the 400, 103 in the 300, okay? That's a big part right there now. That 300 range is that sweet spot. 51 of them were in the 200. So while we're talking about new homes, let's look at what they did. They're under list, at list, and above list. All right, almost the same there. 77.87 were under list, almost 11.5 were at list, and homes that sold above list, you know, over 10.5. So they're higher than the average for everything overall. All right, I got a lot more to cover tonight. We're just getting started. Something I forgot to mention, though, is this is an incident that happened that I became aware of. Didn't happen to me or my customers, but it's about a buyer was looking at a new construction home, and I want to tell you of something that happened, a warning, because this potentially could have cost this buyer thousands of dollars unnecessarily. And I'm talking about, you know, I'm talking about 5,000, 9,000. I mean, even could have been even more than that. Okay, and I'm going to explain what happened a little bit later on here tonight. Okay, we're also going to look at what is called MLS Advantage, which I'm going to do next, and that's where I take a look at all these MLS boards up here in the 9 counties of this Jacksonville metro, and I get all their sold data and combine that and see what it is, because everything I just showed you is out of the Northeast Florida MLS, which is the biggest MLS up here, and that's the one I belong to. But these others cross-sell, so to give you a better idea, I look at their data too, and I also break it down by county. So I'm going to show you the sales by county, and I've got the charts going all the way back on those also, so we're going to check that out too. All right, now, if you like the way I'm putting everything together, the way this show is formatted, not that you like the numbers, I understand. If you like the way I put the show together, then give me a thumbs up. And if you want to subscribe to this channel, just hit the subscribe button there, because we have a lot more than just a market. When you look at my channel, I got a lot of videos. Usually at any given time, I've got 80 plus videos. All right, right now, let's look at the MLS Advantage. Okay, here we are in the MLS Advantage. And we're going to look here at the 9 counties in the Jacksonville metro, and that is Baker, Union, Bradford, Clay, Nassau, Duval, St. Johns, Putnam, and Flagler. Next, I'm going to hit the search button over here, and that brings us up with 866 properties. All right, now I put those numbers into by county, you know, and we look at it. Here you see our total. We had 866, which is a pretty dramatic increase from the last few weeks here. So we're seeing you know, definitely an increase all around. Okay, so here, where did those numbers play out? Okay, Baker doubled to 4. Union still had nothing. Bradford took a dive to only 0 this week from 4 last week. Clay County up to 86. Nassau County dropped at 58. Duval County had an increase to 292. St. Johns also with an increase, 258. Flagler had a big increase to 151 from 81 last week. And Putnam County also dropped to 17. And there's our total, 866. Okay, now we're going to go look at the condos real quick, and basically these charts follow the same format as the other Excel sheets for everything. The difference here is I just separated the condos. Now the condos didn't start at the same time the others. That's why you see here we're in week 31, because this is the first season I've done of the condominiums because of the crisis here in Florida. Now, we're looking here and we see here we are, week 31, that's this week in yellow, and basically you see all the numbers there in that column, and then over on the side is just like the other, the statuses of what those numbers are. So I'll just let you look at those, and then we can move on to the other. Now, if you'd like to study it and look at the sheets before, the weeks before, then just pause the video. Okay, next we're going to take a look and see how they paid. All right, this is how people paid for the condos, and we see here, you know, cash, you know, and conventional is pretty close, okay, these last 2 weeks, okay? And then over here on the far right, those are the amount of units that sold for those type of financing. And you can see we got the total of 39, which was sold, and those are individual units like 19, 18, 0, 1, and 1. Okay, next I look at the foreclosures also, just like the other ones, and remember these are foreclosures that are active listings for sale that are status, like the foreclosures, pre-foreclosures, and short sales. And we see we dropped a little bit on the condos this week. Okay, again, I look at the same thing with condos, the percentage that sold under list, at list, and above list, and we're seeing a higher percentage of condos that sold under list, but surprisingly, the condos that sold at list and above list are in there. Over on the right is the amount of units that sold at that. So it could be that people are pricing their condos more right to the market right now, when we know the condo market isn't that great. Next, I look at the price categories, and we see here where they are, the 500, 400s, 300s, 200s, and below 200s. And so we see a lot below 200. So those are probably those condos that were in the 300s, you know, for a while started dropping, and now they're even dropping even more. So we see the numbers over on the right here on the amount of units, and you see that the most amount of units right there too is under 200 right now. All right, in the new construction, nothing new, so we go to the next one. This here is where I look at the amount of stories, the amount of units sold. Now these are total stories of the complex, not the unit, okay? Not the condo unit. So the complex, because complexes with 3 stories and above are affected by the new law. So we just do this for grins to see if we see any pattern of changes. So here we see, say for instance the first one, 7 of condos sold were 1 story, 16 were in the 2-story complex, 7 were in a 3-story, and so on. And I'll just scroll it down and you can pause the video to look. Okay, the next thing that is affected by the law is the age of these condos. So it's 3 stories and above, okay, for the complex, and also 25-year for coastal, 30-year for inland, okay, for the most part. All right, so the year of the condo does matter. So they're in order by stories. So we've got all the first stories first, the second stories, and so on, and then over next to it is the year of that individual condo. These are the individual condos. So we see one, for example, the first one was, one condo was a 1-story that was built in 2006, the other one's 1996, and then so on. And I'll just scroll that and you can pause it. Okay, this is the counties where the condos were sold, and we see there none were in Clay, Putnam, Bradford this week. Now this chart here is what I do, is where I show the original list price of the condo, what the selling price, that's the closed price, was, and the difference, and you see the difference there. And these were all sold below list price, so it just shows you the difference in how much below list price these condominiums sold, because there were some people that were interested in this information. I'll just scroll it and you can pause it. Okay, the next part of this show is what I call houses of the week, and that's where I pick a house that sold below list, one that sold above list, also condos, and then I look at what they sold for, what they paid for them, and then also see the appreciation on them. And we look at the history of when those price changes happened, and you know, were they multiple offer situations or not. So it just gives you an idea. I get one that's one extreme low and one that's a high. I'll tell you this though, the ones that are selling above, there's not as many of them as there used to be, and they're not selling for a whole lot more above. Okay, so we're going to check all that out. But before I get to that house of the week, now I want to tell you that story of the warning for a buyer. If you're looking to buy a new construction right now, if you all don't know, things changed, you know, in August over the way buyers look at houses now. They sign a contract, a buyer agreement with the broker. It's a buyer-broker agreement is what it's called. And in that, you're saying how much you're going to pay that buying agent for, you know, working this deal for you. You know, it goes to the broker, and then the agent like myself gets paid from that. Okay. Before in the past, everything was, it was in the MLS how much the sellers were given to the broker agents. That's out now. So now the broker agreement has to be signed by the buyer. All right, this person here signed the buyer agreement, right, for a certain percentage of the sale price or a dollar amount, whatever it is. It's not fixed, okay? And they signed it with their agent that they were going to go look at houses, which was fine. However, what they did was they went ahead and went into a model home without that agent, okay? Now what happens is with the builders, when they go in, a lot of them by themselves and they don't have the agent or didn't say they were working with an agent, that builder gets their information and they're logged in the system. So you know what happens? That means the agent they were working with is not going to get compensated for working with that buyer. So they probably aren't going to work with them. However, they signed that buyer agreement, okay? And the buyer agreement says that they have to pay that broker regardless. So what's going to happen? What happens is we know what these new home builders are going to compensate, you know, the buying agents for, and we go into that, you know, and negotiate that with you to get, you know, to have them pay that part of the agreement. But if you go without the agent, that new builder is not going to pay that comp to the other broker. So what happens is you're going to get that new home for the same price, okay, that you would have gotten whether you used an agent or not, and now you risk having to pay that other broker. In this case, they let it go and they just did away with the contract. They didn't enforce it. But it depends on who you get, because some agents may enforce that if you went there. So I'm telling you, if you've watched my show at all, I'm telling you, now more than ever, it's more important to have the right real estate agent and to have this discussion before you look at homes. Like I said, if you want, I'm an agent up here in Northeast Florida, come from Jacksonville, the Palm Coast, St. Augustine, all that area. If you'd like to put me in the mix or talk to me about looking at homes or even selling a homes, then just get in touch with me at this number or this email. All right, now let's go and look at those houses of the week. All right, here as we go into the houses of the week, we're going to start off with the house that sold below list price. Okay, this house built in 1997. 2,008 square feet. Okay, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, and it's in Flagler County. When we look at the history on this, we see it went on the market for $749,500. All the houses of the week when we look at are going to follow the same format. Right here in this area is where we're going to see where the starting price was. Up here at the top, we see what it sold for, $585,000. Over here on the side, it tells days on the market. That's what DOM is. So this was on the market for 168 days. So if we look at that, when it got to about 168 days, they had already lowered the price to $659, and they took an offer for $585, even though they had it lowered to $659. That is huge. Of course, what they started out was obviously too high. But the fact that it was on the market for 168 days at the $659 and they still took that price, my point is, when you see a home on the market this long and you go look for something, say your budget is like $600,000, well, look at homes that are more than $600, because you might be able to get it for less for the offer. You don't know why that seller is selling. And in this case, they needed to sell, so they took that offer. Okay, we're going to look down here. When I see there was no concessions on this, as I'm looking, but we're looking at the sold price per square foot. $291 a square foot is what it sold for. Okay, now these people built the house, it looks like, when I look at the records, so we don't have an appreciation calculator because we don't know what they paid for the house when they bought it new, when they built it. Okay, the house now that sold for above list price. This one's 2024, so it is new construction, so we won't have an appreciation calculator on that, but let's take a look at it. It's in Duval County, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. We look at the history on this. This thing started off at $284,485. They did. Well, they ended up raising the price to $329. Okay. Geez, after a week. Okay, they had it. Then they lowered it back down to $279. Right away, so that must have been a mistake, because it's only the next day they brought it down to $279. Had it at $279 here for a while. After 78 days on the market, then they got an offer took for $303,080. Okay, now depending on where it was and what the deal was, who knows? Let me see if there was some concessions. Okay, this one here had no concessions, so that is interesting. The sold price per square foot is $170 a square foot, and it could have been other people wanting this house too at the same time. Even new construction, it happens. I've had weird things happen where homes have been on the market here for 2 months, 3 months. No one's doing nothing. As soon as we go in to put in an offer, we're in a multiple offer situation, so go figure. Okay, next we're going to look at the condo that sold below list price. Okay, this condo here in St. Johns County, built in 1984. Okay, 1,123 square feet. Total stories 2, so they skipped out on that requirement. All right, it's a 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath. Now, if we look over here on the side, we see what their annual fees are. All right, they have a monthly fee of $485, okay? We look at the history on this that went on the market at $335,000, okay? After a after a week, they started lowering the price, 2 weeks even more. They brought it down to $280 after it was on the market for 50 days. They got an offer for $250 and took it. So, from where they were at beginning, that's quite a difference. But, it's not that much off of what they had already lowered it to. All right, when we look at the price per square foot, this one also didn't have any concessions, but the price per square foot sold for $222 a square foot. Now, these people here bought it new back in 1985 for $70,500. Okay, when we put that into an appreciation calculator, they had it for 39 years, and it was 3.29% appreciation per year, so that was low. They obviously got hit by some of this condo mess, that brought it down some, because that wasn't a great appreciation, or just the condo itself where it was, just didn't warrant getting the money for it. It's like some of these beachside condos do end up getting a lot more. Okay, next is the condo that sold for above list price, and it's the only one. All right, it was in Nassau County, built in 2001, 1,620 square feet, 4 stories total height, okay? It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Over here we take a look at and we see that they do have a monthly fee of $690. Okay, this one here, okay, started out at $799,000. Was on the market. Now, it's weird how they show this. Show days on the market 0, but that's not really the case. It looks like it probably closed out after about a month, but they got an offer of $825,000. Now, this one here, okay, they got that extra money, okay, above, but they also had concessions of $16,500. Although even after those concessions, they still came out, ahead above, the asking price, to where the sold price per square foot was $509 a square foot. Okay, they had bought this condo back in 2020 for $450,000. Okay, when we put that into an appreciation calculator, we see here they had it for just over 4 years and made 15.4% per year. All right, well, they bought it in there in July of 2020, just before things went crazy, okay, with the price of stuff. But even still, this is an incredible appreciation that held for a condominium. All right, I've given you a lot of information. As you can see with those houses of the week, man, there's one extreme to another. Everything depends on where that house is, how long it's on the market, what the deal is. Some of them are on the market a while and they can go up. It all depends on the house and where it's at, especially these new builds, on what that lot is. Is it a premium lot? Is it a neighborhood that's already built out and things like that? There's a lot of things that can go into that. Hey, this is week 21 and it's in the can, and Sunday night I'm going to be showing this house on my Sunday night show, so check it out. So until then, I'm out of here.